Midwest Box Trucking. In today's video, really quickly, I'm going to give you guys 5 viable options in order to maximize profits within your trucking company, more specifically, your box truck business. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time, so without further ado, let's get right into it. And at number 1, and this pertains to new entrants as well as more tenured individuals. My advice to newer entrants would be to limit or control your overhead initially before you ever begin running a truck. And this pertains to the truck you choose to purchase. It's a huge debate in the space. Some content creators will tell you to get an older truck, 2010 in the back. Other content creators will tell you to get a newer truck, 2015 and forward. In my opinion, first and foremost, my advice would be to get an affordable truck. Go with the most affordable option for your budget within your trucking company. Secondly, will pertain to insurance. And this cuts into overhead as well. A lot of individuals, misinformed individuals, run right to Progressive for their commercial insurance needs. Oftentimes, this can be a big mistake. A few years ago, Progressive was one of the only options for newer trucking companies. In today's age, a lot of insurance companies have caught on to this box truck boom and are more ready and willing to service newer motor carrier authorities. So individuals need to do the legwork and either broker their insurance needs out and have their trucking company shopped around to different commercial insurance companies, or do the legwork themselves and shop their own trucking company around through Byberg, Canal, etc. I got a video about a year ago where I gave a list of insurance companies, commercial insurance companies, that are willing to work with new authorities. And like I said, this is an issue a lot of individuals face. I myself was with Progressive for years, and they tried to up my rate from about $1,400 a month abruptly to about $2,100, at which time I exited. And this was a little more than a year ago. But this is my advice to new individuals as well as tenured individuals. If you're tenured and you've been with Progressive for a number of years, it doesn't hurt to get a quote from another insurance company, just to make sure that you're getting the best insurance premium. So that's something to think about. Beyond insurance, a lot of individuals fail to initially find resources for cheaper fuel, such as the Mudflap app. So either you're going to use an app to find cheaper fuel prices, or once again, do the legwork to find the cheaper fuel stations in your area or along your route in order for you to regularly save money on your fuel purchases. You got to realize when you're out here, that's one of your main expenses. So you want to make sure that you're getting fuel at the cheapest price possible. So download the Mudflap app or any other app that you may know of. Do the research. Check the prices in your general area or areas you frequent and find cheaper resources for fuel. And lastly, pertaining to overhead, we're still on number 1 now. One of the main things individuals need to do in order to maximize profits within their trucking company would be to know your costs in general, as well as what? Know your cost per mile. And the reason why this matters, because I think a lot of individuals still don't take this cost and cost per mile thing serious. If you understand your costs, then you understand what rate you're able to drive for, as well as how much you're profiting when doing so. So this is something individuals need to think about when they choose not to calculate their cost per mile, or, as I stated, cost in general. Because even if you don't know your cost per mile, you could at least know the total of what it costs you to run your business weekly or monthly, which would be your general cost. But you also need to know your cost per mile. As I stated, this is going to help you be more profitable because you're going to know what to or what not to drive for. And that leads me into number 2, which is going to be to run your truck at a higher rate per mile, well above your cost per mile. Don't get them confused. It's a difference. I know most people in the space understand the difference between the two, but just for the record, your rate per mile is the rate at which you're paid out for whatever loads you choose to book. Your cost per mile is the cost that you incur for those particular loads that you choose to book. Once we understand the difference between rate per mile and cost per mile, then we could determine what to drive for. In my opinion, you should be regularly aiming to drive for $1 to $1.50 above your cost per mile to remain profitable. So if your cost per mile is $1.50, you want to be aiming for $2.50 to $3 per mile on average. Of course, it's going to be special circumstances where you're going to need to drive for less, maybe even at your cost per mile. But on a regular basis, you want to be aiming for $1 to $1.50 above your cost per mile. This is going to keep you profitable. This is going to allow you a larger profit margin. This is something individuals need to think about when choosing what to or what not to drive for. And as I stated, my second piece of advice is to drive for a higher rate per mile. And at number 3 is going to be for you to start out running your own truck, dispatching your own truck, and learning the day-to-day and ins and outs of your own business. There's nothing wrong with outsourcing different duties within your trucking company. But initially, you want to be the individual in the truck, running the loads, doing the dispatching, and so forth. This way you get a in-depth understanding of your trucking company as a whole before you ever place a driver in your truck, before you ever hire a dispatcher, before you ever look into other systems to help run your business. Initially, you want to get an in-depth understanding of the day-to-day operations. And I guarantee you, overall, this is going to render you more successful in the long run. And at number 4, my fourth piece of advice to you is going to be to scout or broker cheaper commercial insurance. I talked about this pertaining to my first point dealing with overhead. A lot of individuals don't do the legwork to secure cheaper commercial insurance when it's a plethora of different options out here now. It's a lot more commercial insurance companies willing to service startup, smaller 1, 2, and 3 truck entities. So this is something to think about before you ever start a trucking company, because a big part of getting started is obtaining commercial insurance. Everyone knows you have 21 days after applying for your motor carrier authority before the FMCSA will consider you active. So on that 19th day, you're going to have insurance. Before you ever apply for that motor carrier authority, you want to be looking into valuable options for commercial insurance outside of companies such as Progressive. And my fifth and final point, in order to maximize profits within your box truck business, is going to be to shorten or decrease your general running radius. In other words, book shorter runs more often. I used this analogy in the past, some years back. I look at my week and my truck as a football field. What does a good football coach do? He uses a mixture of the run and the pass. The run, in my opinion, being short hauls, low risk, on and off, really quick, less fuel, higher rate per mile. That's the run, which are the shorter hauls. The pass, in my opinion, are your longer hauls. They're higher risk. They tie your truck up a lot longer. You're going to use a lot more fuel. And normally they go for a lower rate per mile. Maybe not substantially lower, but lower than the short runs. So for my week with my truck, I use a mixture of the run and the pass in order to meet my weekly goals. So this is something you guys can implement and think about as well. And just as a quick recap, my first piece of advice to newer entrants would be to limit or control overhead initially. And my first piece of advice to tenured individuals would be to work on lowering or decreasing overhead. My second piece of advice would be to run your truck at a higher RPM, well above your cost per mile. My third piece of advice would be to start out running, dispatching, and understanding the day-to-day operations of your own business. My fourth piece of advice would be to scout or broker out your commercial insurance needs. And my fifth and final piece of advice would be to shorten or decrease your general running radius. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 ways for you to maximize profitability within your box truck business. And with that being said, as usual, you guys stay safe out there, take it easy, and have a good one. Appreciate you.